Welcome to episode 3 of On Board, where we're going to be looking at some of the things that were put on the chopping block for October to be rendered for November for completion. I'm going to be looking at images that I want to preserve that need to be amended, as well as look at a few topics that will be up and coming that I want to cover eventually. But the focus of this video is the second half of the compiled group of images from October. The first was covered in the first 2 episodes. And this third one is actually like a fourth attempt to get this part 3 completed. So that's what we'll be doing. But before I do that, I want to share something else with you. Yeah, so what you're looking at here is issue 190 of The Amazing Spider-Man from 1978. March, to be exact, which would have put it on the stands in the beginning of January to mid-January, as the display dates were usually 2 months ahead. This is my original childhood copy, although I didn't pick it up from the stands. I got a hold of this around 1980 from a neighbor, who also gave me the rest of the 190s, as well as the first 6 issues of the 200s. And anyway, we got a picture there of the Man-Wolf, or that is John Jameson, son of J. Jonah Jameson, on the top of a bridge fighting Spidey. And this kind of strums up the whole Gwen Stacy tragedy vibe, right? And in this particular case, there was a bit of a bad result, whereas if you look carefully in the bottom panels, you see that Spidey loses his grip on John Jameson's hand, and he plunges into the drink, right, and supposedly dies. Whereas we find a disgruntled J. Jonah Jameson accusing Spidey of murder and get your hands off me and all that business, right? Okay. Yeah, this isn't really meant to be a summary of the issue or a flip through, but there you have it. There's a splash page, pretty decent. This actual issue was it was laid out by John Byrne and finished by Jim Mooney. But what I wanted to show you was an advertisement on the inside cover here. It is an advertisement for the now classic remake of the classic Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is the one with Donald Sutherland, Brooke Adams, Jeff Goldblum, and Leonard Nimoy. And this was I ended up seeing this not in the theater, but around 1980, about 2 years after it had come out. And I saw it after experiencing a house fire with my family, which is another story altogether. Anyway, it blew me away. It was one of my favorite childhood sci-fi memory movies. One of those ones that I could play again and again. We all have that handful, that bucket of movies that we can never seem to get bored of. But this was one of the biggies from my childhood, and I loved it. But yeah, I saw the image, and it really took me back. And I thought about making an image suitable for a frame out of this one. But But then something dawned on me. I started thinking about the idea of movie posters per se, right? And where that led me was to a memory I had between 78 and 1982, between the ages of 10 and 12. Something that I witnessed was in East Vancouver at the time. There was a theater district downtown. There was the Capital Six, which was a larger of the theaters, and a couple Cineplex Odeon outlets on that same street, and not too far from one another. So if you wanted to go to see the flicks, you could, anyway, you just hang out in that area. Now, Capital Six usually, played current movies, of course. The other two also play current, but at the same time also entertain the idea of playing movies that were dated, that were from a few years back. For example, I remember going down there in 1981 and seeing for the first time two Bruce Lee movies, right? And that was Return of the Dragon from 1970 and Enter the Dragon from 1973. Blew me away. Suddenly became a Bruce Lee freak, which also leads to another idea that I'll share towards the end of this video in relation to that. But the thing I wanted to touch upon did concern movie posters. Now, what I remember seeing advertised behind glass and sometimes out on the street in like fold up condition, whatever, you know what I'm talking about when you put a sign out on your lawn advertising something, or sorry, on the sidewalk advertising your menu if it's a restaurant or what, were these movie posters. And they were not, now these were hand painted, this was hand painted poster work, you understand, poster paint, acrylic paints, etc., what have you. Now, they were not, I'm not talking, to be clear, I'm not talking about photographs of paintings from the movie. I'm talking about the opposite. I'm talking about enlarged paintings from photographs from the movie. You understand? Not something mass produced, right? Something, one-time deals, original pieces of artwork, if you get my meaning. Now, that pretty much was the norm in those theaters. I see that all the time. Hand-painted sign work, right? Now, it's not something that I've seen for years, since. I don't know when it stopped. Perhaps someone does know. Perhaps it still goes on. If you've witnessed that, then let us know in the comments. But I certainly haven't seen much of it. Now, when I got older, I realized that, I tried to imagine how or what was really going on there. Like, was it a matter of a local independent theater having an artistic contact who, gave them some sort of short commission to, do a painting of the movie that they were going to play for the next few weeks or so, right? I mean, nothing wrong with it. I mean, it seemed to work, kept them in business. They kept busy, These posters were put out there facing the sidewalk for passersby downtown to go in. And I don't know. If anyone knows about this line of work and how it worked, please leave something in the comments to let us know. Because to me, it seems like it was a thing of the past. Now, speaking of posters concerning, when you're talking about the 70s, first of all, the idea of posters and iron-ons were two huge things during the 70s, especially the late 70s. People were into it. From about 75 on, I would say. But that's another thing altogether. When it comes to movie posters, there was also a place down by the Capitol 6 uh, called Golden Age Collectibles. The last I heard, they still exist, but I don't think it may not be the same location because I looked them up on YouTube and I saw that the interior of the building looks a lot bigger. It looks like they expanded. The place I remember was pretty much like a slot, and between 78 and 80, I don't know, the beginning of 83, uh, it was like one of the first places I would go to get back issues of comics and stuff. But what Golden Age Collectibles also sold were photographs from movie sets of popular movies, right? And they were usually unique batches, right? There weren't a bunch of copies, right? And they'd sell for a pretty penny. But they also sold movie posters, like the actual photographed, mass-produced movie posters. And I remember being a little kid and craning my neck up at a poster of Beneath the Planet of the Apes. And it was a picture of a painting, a photo of a painting of an ape holding a guy above his head like he was going to body slam him. I thought, wow, look at that. But yeah, I don't know how popular that sort of thing is still today. I'm not sure. If I know it was pretty popular up until the turn of the century, but anyway, let us know in the comments if you know anything about that. But moving on, we're gonna take a look at the other items for October that are to be realized. Some of them are finished actually and almost ready for the self-indulgent series and the inking series, etc., etc. I'll also be covering a few topics, or well, at least one serious one that I would like to cover at some point. But anyway, before I head into the first item, I just want to explain something about this image here and where it comes from. This is from 2005. It's oil on canvas, and it's not realized at all. Nothing really took place. I got a black wash, and I got one-tone white doing this image. Actually, it looks like two-tone, but I just went thicker in certain areas where it looks whiter. But yeah, 2005, and how that came about was my buddy's sister's kid, who had turned 10, had found out that I was doing, artwork and stuff, and said, "Can you draw me skull and crossbones?" And I ended up drawing him that in one of my sketchbooks, and I still have it somewhere. I'm not going to dig it out, but anyway, they lived up north. It was like a 4-hour drive, something like that. And anyway, when I got back into town, I started working on the oil painting, thinking, well, I'll do this oil painting and send it off to the kid, whatever. Give it to him, because I didn't think it would be. I haven't been back there since. I'll put it that way. A lot of things happen. Life stuff, I mean, I was coming to an end in a relationship. There was a move involved, and then things started getting crazy chaotic. I touched upon that before, but yeah, it was getting crazy creative period, though. I mean, a lot of work produced. But anyway, never got around to it, and I just wanted to cancel out any Skull and Bones Club rumors or piracy rumors. Whatever, that's what this is. So we'll get rid of this. And you probably recognize this image from previous videos. 2012. This is also oil on canvas. Something a bit more abstract. So let's start with our first image. Okay, so this first one is a black ink pen sketch that was done in the shop. As you can see, there's a shipping slip. Right, it was drawn on the back of that shipping slip at work, so during my day job in the shop, right? And it's from 2002, and it's part of a Ghost project I was working on. Ghost being this character here from Dark Horse Comics, if some of you aren't familiar with her. Now, at that time, I had read in Wizard Magazine that Dark Horse, and I don't know if they still do it, that they were offering to the public an 8-page script so that pencilers and inkers could, test their hand and send in samples of their work for, possible appraisal or even a job, right? So definitely I wanted to get into that. Completed that. A lot of detailed work. A lot of pretty good work, I might add. But there were mistakes that I see years later. I look at that work, and maybe we'll put that under the microscope sometime too. But this particular drawing was just one of so many. What do you call it? Preliminary drawings for a panel. And in this particular panel, Ghost has got her gun out and she's about to blast away our bad guy here. But yeah, one of many. So I pulled this out a few weeks back and I said, well, there's something here. I could probably preserve this image, but there's a few things I'd probably want to change. But the first thing would be to get a photocopy. And so I did. I got that photocopy and I started looking at it. Look at the problem areas. Well, right away I thought, yeah, I'll be getting out some correction fluid and getting rid of this this shading on the left leg. Didn't like this arm either. It was too long. There was some problem speckles here and there. I could see other things too that I'd have to eliminate. And so I went ahead and started using correction fluid. So away we went and off we go with the correction fluid, and right away I eliminated most of the arm here. You could still see evidence of the forearm there. Got rid of that black shading with the correction fluid there, but you can see all over the drawing, top to bottom, along the edges, the sides, along the back of our creature here, that there was a lot of problem areas that I had to eliminate. And I could see right away that the back of our villain here was going to be a problem too. So I'd have to continue to the next photocopy. And so there we were with the next. You could see how it would look. And with this portion here, we now had this extra space because it became part of the page with the photocopy, right? Where I could put in the rest of the figure and complete the drawing straight across the page. But I still didn't like what was happening here with this arm. And I could still see some stuff in the foot and stuff that I probably want to eliminate. And that back was still a problem. So I was going to have to deal with that. So it was on to the next photocopy. So at this point, I completely eliminated that arm and figured I'd just redraw the whole thing. Touched up with correction fluid the toe, the calf here, the inside of the thigh here. Attack the back of this creature a bit more. Some of the spots here, along the edges, whatever. Still cleaning up those bad lines. And thus far, this is where we're at with this guy. Basically what this means is I'll go back in with a black pen over the whatever lines are left over, right? And then complete the drawing right over to the edge of the page and until it's fully realized and the image is preserved and it's in a state which is more presentable. And this, of course, will be on the Self-Indulgent series when it's completed. And it may be a good time to mention something. And that is that right from the get-go, let me remind you that, yeah, this video isn't about realized works of art. This is more about stuff, about works in progress. It's about images that I'm going to preserve and I'm going to restore and bring them up and then show you how I do it in the videos to come. But right now I'm just going through the material of the things that are under observation. That's the idea right now. Okay, so this one is another black ink pen drawing. This one's from 1993. And what you have is a picture of a Vampirella-like figure, a female vampire. And on the tip of her pinky there's a drop of blood she's about to taste, and she's in some sort of trance-like state of ecstasy. Now, this picture was originally much larger. There was 2 inches cut from the top and from the side. And what was on that side was a faintly penciled in image of a man with his back to the viewer peeling off his shirt at the end of the bed. So there was a prelude there, some sort of storytelling, a sequence. Something was about to happen. There was some drama in there. But at first I thought about restoring that image and bringing it up simply because it was original, but I'm not sure I'm going to do that anymore. It's just so water damaged, it's not even funny. And that brings us to the point that, yeah, you see the extreme water damage through the hair here and a bit in this area. This is the original. So in the Self-Indulgent series, this is actually completed. I did manage to restore and preserve the image, and I have that on me, and I'll be putting it in the Self-Indulgent series, and I'll show you how I did it and what I used to do it. Also, I'll probably mention this technique of creating hair, which looks complicated, but it's actually just a 3-stage progression that's really simple. It's a very simple technique. It's not the only technique that can be used for hair in this instance, but it's one that I've used more than once. Also, I'll explain how that was achieved with the eyeshadow the way it was with just, I mean, this is all just black line work, folks. Remember that. And I'll say something about that. But, yeah. So, there you have it. You'll be seeing that one. It's been fully realized. I could do more with it, but the idea was just to basically restore this this troubled area here. Okie dokie. And the next one here, this one's from 2008. And you'll notice some of these images are rather conventional, right? Pedestrian, if you would. Not much of a dynamic pose there, or hands doing something. But I wanted to restore and preserve this image. This is black ballpoint pen, actually. And if you look towards the hands and the thumb of the other hand, you see that the line or arc between the waist and the hips cuts right through the wrist and right through the thumb. And that happens when you're following through with stroke. But, ballpoint pen is unforgiving, right? If you don't have a pencil drawing underneath it. So these things happen. And if you're going to restore, well, you're going to have to, if it's going to be black and white, then then you're going to have to make a photocopy. So, went ahead and did that. Right? And applied the correction fluid, right? You know, in those troubled areas around the hands, a little bit on the breast, the clavicle, and up towards the head by the nose, and so on and so forth. And then it was a matter of getting another photocopy. And actually, I got several. And the other ones are fully realized and drawn up, and they don't involve the severing of that arm. So they're fully realized. This figure's fully realized in those other images. And they're built up and finished and elaborated, and they'll be on the Self-Indulgence series as well. Okay, so this guy's from 2005, and it's a blue ballpoint pen. And again, it's on the back of some computer printout paper done at work during my day job at the time. Rather rough, actually a little dirty too. You can see a thumbprint there on the thigh of carbon. And yeah, you know, I decided to go ahead with this. I don't know if you can make this out, but here there is the butt end of a gun there, and I had suggested earlier that it could be like a snub nose 38, but it would be, I think what I should be shooting for, if I am gonna, if I were to leave that in, would be something like a 22 pistol, something that's easily concealed. Yeah, but anyway, I decided to go ahead and make a colored copy of it and start the process. So yeah, already you could see the correction fluid all the way through there. I blanked out the gun. I wasn't sure about how I felt about that. I thought, well, if I want it, I can bring it back. Anyway, went in with the correction fluid all the way around, right, knocking it out, getting rid of that bad line work. Then it hit me, what are you doing? Like, I like the image. It's got a very simple form, but you know, why go for the blue ink? Might as well go for the black and white and comic book it, so to speak, right? So I decided to go ahead and get a black and white copy instead of preserving the blue ink. See, with the blue ink, if you're going to preserve it, as I said before, what you do is after you put in the correction fluid and you go to get your photocopy after that, you reduce the density on the machine, and basically that'll preserve the blues but knock out the correction fluid. But anyway, I decided, no, screw the blue, we'll go black and white. Oh, almost forgot. And note that I put a bit more structure in the rib cage, giving it a bit more shape there, more hourglassy, so to speak. So I did. I went in and did a black and white. I ruled up the edges, as you can see along here, squaring them up, you know. I left the thigh to come out, extend past that border, and leaving this blank space here, you know, I started thinking about that space and thinking about adding things. But for now, putting in correction fluid again, because some of the marks were coming up from the previous copy. Still, again, eliminating, bringing up, re-etching, taking out the bad line work, and trying to solidify the good stuff, right? Again, putting another coat of ink on as I'm going, right? And this is where it is thus far, pretty much, you know. And I did some work after some correction fluid was applied to the octopus tattoo in the middle there. And then basically I've retained the basic form. And what I do with it from here on in will be interesting to see. But the goal was obtained already. And this will be in the self-indulgent series as well. And I do have some ideas for this blank space. But whether I leave it or not for a different date is, I haven't decided. But either way, this will be in the series. Yeah, now this one I really wasn't sure about. Again, on the back of some computer printout paper done at work. This is also 2005. Yeah, the reason I wasn't sure I was going to do this is there wasn't too much wrong with this drawing, really, as far as I could see. But there are some blue lines on the top of the cap that don't belong there, that they would have to be eliminated. So I had gone ahead and done a blown up copy of this, but forgot to eliminate the blue lines. Anyway, decided to, while I was at it, go black and white on it, right? First of all, with that photocopy. Then add my correction fluid to the trouble spot on the white part of the hood, if you can make that out, right? Right? And then get the final copy with all amendments made. And that's all there was to this one, but I'll probably put it up there for, I don't know, just for the hell of it. But yeah, there's not too much to this one. Moving on. Okay, what you're looking at here is a pencil drawing from 1989. Now, this is in fact a referenced issue, referenced image. And I have to say something about it. Yeah, so right off the top, from the get-go, I'll mention this, that this isn't the original penciled version. A few days ago, I photocopied the original pencils, okay? But the original pencils are now inked. I was looking at this image and I thought, yeah, I'd like to ink it. Now, a bit about it. This is actually a referenced drawing of this figure. I got the image from a 80s National Geographic. I'm sorry, I don't know what the article was or about, but I do remember the image, and that was back in 1989. But obviously the Frank Castle poster in the background, the Wanted poster, I put up there later. But yeah, this has, I looked at it and I said, you know, recently I looked at this, forgot about it, and I said, you know, this would be a good idea to ink this, I think. I never used to think that way, right? But so I got my photocopies of the penciled version, and now it's fully inked, and it will go up in the Thinking Inking series or the Self-Indulgence series, or both, who knows? But there it is. Now, when I was going through this stuff in October and pulling out the images that I thought, well, I can amend this and go through the process. Maybe I can upload some of this stuff and show how I did these things step by step or whatever. I started going through, like, there's, you know, I got binders full of this stuff. You got to understand, folks, drawing after drawing stuff to last me a year by doing what I'm doing, right? I mean, sorry, a year, yeah. Years, right, to keep me going. But some of the images, what I did when I came across them is I just attacked them with correction fluid and corrected them right there on the spot with black ink, if you know what I mean, right? Some of them aren't even photocopied. For example, here's one. This one's from 2002, and it's like a picture of a draftsman guy you know, kind of thing. Again, back of computer printout paper. I, you know, I banged out the correction fluid and tightened this one up. I don't know why I preserved it. It's not that great. But yeah, it's a guy at his table, at his workbench. Or sorry, at his drawing table. And my foreman saw this, you know, on the shop floor. And he said, "Oh, that's you." And I guess he saw right through it, right? It was like, you know, if I was a little kid in school, it would be like a guy, little kid dreaming he was a fighter pilot. Like, look at the look on this guy's face, and he's giving the thumbs up like, this would be a job I would like. Daydreaming, right? Something like that from yesteryear. But anyway, so there's that one. Just, you know, just a, you know, probably a fine point Sharpie, you know, nothing too crazy here. So that was one that I did on the spot without going through a process or anything, you know. And then some of these images really aren't much. Here's a ballpoint pen little sketch. Again, right? Something done at work on the day job. Of Spidey, you know, correction fluid on the arm and shoulder that hasn't been drawn in yet. I don't know why I keep some of these, to tell you the truth. Then I came across this one, which is, again, on the back of a shipping slip, right? I can't show you the mistakes on this one because they're wetted out, right? That's the idea. I just went in on the spot, started applying correction fluid on it, right? Got, you know, a photocopy of that. Maintaining the blue inks on this one. And still went in with correction fluid, working on the hair, eliminating bad lines, working on it, right? And then continued. And there were a few lines left in the hair. I was almost there. And then ended up with something like this. This one's a little bit more blown up. But yeah, I like the image. And, you know, it's again, conventional, right? It's pretty pedestrian, not much happening there. But just want to preserve some of these images. Put them all in a scrapbook, whatever. Then here's something else. Black ink. A lot of mess on this paper. Dirty. Again, in the shop. Back of computer printout. Right, it's Nature Lady on a horse, so to speak. Right? And some of the lines were eliminated. A lot of it was eliminated. But I thought the basic outline was decent, and maybe I could do something with it. Just complete the drawing. We'll see. And then here, I did these on the spot too. You know, I had put some correction fluid on them at a different point in time. And then I just came back to them and said, look, you know, just toggle them up with the correction fluid. Put your line work down. Embellish a bit and be done with it. Now these are, you know, these aren't photocopies. These are the original work. So, you know, the last part of the process is yet to be done. But whatever, they're ready to go. They're good to go. They're done, right? Yeah. So, you know, and there's a lot like that in those binders, but I can't bring them all out. But I'm just going to share something else here. For a second, let me get this one set up so we can take a closer look. Now, this one is from 2002, and it's ballpoint pen. It looks like a Bic pen. It's got that purple hue running through it. This one came out, you know, pretty tight. Like there's only one spot of correction fluid there. Something was going on there. I don't know if it was dirt or what. But, you know, it's got your basic big old bad barbarian dude with the fairy princess there sitting outside of a little cave. And, yeah, this one worked out all right. And it was pretty crisp, so I knew all I had to do was touch it up a bit. And I ended up doing that. Oh, God. Even though this is from 2002, it was only a couple years ago that I took it out and tickled it up and fine lined it a bit and brought it into the current day. I used it as a project for a reading I was doing on Bar Kokhba, and I was trying to suggest that this was a picture of Big Bad Bar Kokhba, you know, from the Jewish revolts back in, what was that? 135? Something like that. During the reign of Hadrian, whatever. Anyway, ended up using it. So it was good. So didn't take much to bring it up. But this one's not going to be on the videos like, you know, self-indulgence or whatever. It's already been done. But I just saw that and I thought, oh, I'm going to throw this in there too. And what the caption says, I don't know if you can... Oh, wait. Yeah, up top there's a caption. It just basically says, stop looking at thine wench snapper headeth. Whatever. Anyway, there it was. Now, one more thing about this image I should mention. Notice the cave in the background there, the little cave? It's almost suggestive. But I remember at the time, and if there's any influence on this drawing from that, it comes from that period of time where I had noticed that on the animation channel, Teletoon I think it was called, they were showing retro stuff. And at the time they were doing the 66 Hulk cartoon, you know, Doc Bruce Banner, right? That one. And I was recording the episodes, and so I could watch them later and stuff. But there was one episode where Hulk ends up taking Betty into a cave because it's raining out and he wants to keep her dry. And she was, you know, moved by that and stuff. So I thought, yeah, you know, the timing was right. So maybe that was what was going on there. Influenced by that. Not really sure, but I know that that's what was happening at the time in 2002 when I was watching that and drawing this. Anyway, there you have it. There's a bunch of stuff to consider. Things that are coming up for November and other things that are just being shared. Now, at the beginning of this video, I referred to a Spider-Man issue there. 190. This is 189 of The Amazing Spider-Man, 1978. February, putting it on the stands, probably December 77? Oh, geez, I'm not sure. Yeah, December 77, I would think. But anyway, and make no mistake about the year there, folks. I mean, these guys were like superheroes. You have no idea. I'm not talking about taste in music or anything, but the impact. These guys were in every goddamn teen magazine there was. Seriously, larger than life. They might as well have been superheroes themselves. Anyway, moving on. What I wanted to show you was something else, though. And here we go. Was this ad here for an up-and-coming, well, I mean, they're trying to get you interested in the issues of Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu. And that's a Zek drawing there, but it's inked by Gene Day. And you'll note the caption there on the bottom, a new standard of comic art excellence. Well, at that time, yeah, at that time, you could certainly say that. I don't know if you can see this, but the inks on this were so tight. So tight, you wouldn't believe it. I don't know if you can see that on the chest area, but Gene Day was using ink so tight that he was drawing the small beads of perspiration on his figures, on his, on our hero here. And that was really inspirational. Now, I don't know how this publication was doing around the world, but in East Vancouver, it was huge. I mean, the young Asian community loved it. We all did, really. It was great. It made me look at comic book art a lot differently. And that caption alone speaks volumes. I remember starting to draw this way. Now, you got to remember, it was all pencil to paper with us. It's not like we were penciling our drawings and then, now it's time to ink them. Fuck no. We'd try to render what we saw with our pencils themselves. So with work that fine, like detail, like little beads of sweat with a thin outline around them and stuff, that meant having an ultra sharp pencil. So it was a lot of trips up by the teacher's desk and up by the blackboard to, use those crank style pencil sharpeners. Remember, that would keep your pencil really sharp, and you could achieve those lines. But the problem was, because the pencil was so sharp, they dig in and leave an impression. So good luck getting a good erasing on any mistakes and stuff. I remember that. But when they worked, they really worked. Gene Day would go on to do some issues on his own after this. Sadly enough, he passed away, but while he was in there, it was clear that he was clearly a very strong talent. But what they didn't tell you about this, and this is kind of part of the issue, why I'm mentioning this, it wasn't just the impact, but what they didn't tell you was that, Gene Day and these guys were using photos. I mean, they were light boxing and they were tracing photographs, that kind of thing, and then transferring those onto the page and stuff. Like, at the time when we'd look at the images, it's not like we were saying, well, it looks like photos and that's not right. And we didn't care. It just looked so good, right? But later, as I got older, and I recently found out about Neil Adams and actually the whole industry utilizing swipes and light boxing and that kind of thing, I was kind of dismayed, because I had been self-taught and learned the hard way how to render my things as real as I could get without doing stuff like that. So I felt kind of ripped off, right? Going the hard route. But I'm not sure I feel that way anymore. I haven't been doing it. I still do things my own way, but I've been thinking about something. And I remember an episode of Cartoonist Kayfabe where Jim Rugg and Ed Pisker were looking over some of the Paul Galassi, Gene Day, and Zek Master of Kung Fu work. And they started talking about light boxing, the photo referencing and stuff. And I remember Ed saying, yeah, well, basically, before you start talking shit, a shout out to the audience, right? Saying that you can go and light box your images, get your outlines, and fill in your own stuff. But if you think your stuff, basically I'm paraphrasing, but if you think your stuff's going to look like anything like this, you're mistaken. So remember that before you start talking shit. And I thought about that, and I thought about that, and I went, wow, yeah, he's probably right about that. So learning to draw the hard way taught me to get as close to realism as I could without that stuff. But lately I thought, wow, if I started utilizing that kind of stuff, what could I come up with? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, but that's what I want to touch upon in an up and coming episode. That very issue and how we feel about these things and what can be said about it. My experience with it, although I don't have hardly any. But I had, I remember tracing as a little kid when I was learning how to draw. These kind of things come up. But yeah, I definitely want to look at those things and other issues that will come up. But yeah, that stuff was great. I mean, to me, I remember at that time thinking, I remember thinking at that time that some of that work was some of the best comic book work I had ever seen up until that point. Now, I didn't, you know, how can I put this? Picking up comics as a boy was just picking up comics, I wouldn't, a caption like that, about, kicking it up a notch artistically, like that caption that Marvel wrote in the ad, that wouldn't phase me, right? But I remember thinking it, wow, this is really special, without discussing it with other kids, right? Because it was more of an artistic thing. It was good. I knew it was good, and I knew a lot of other kids enjoyed it. But I was like, when I started drawing it, I realized I had a new appreciation for it. Anyway, definitely want to take a look at some of that stuff. The whole idea surrounding that issue in an up and coming episode. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap this one up pretty much. Covered a lot of different images. The second half of what's due for November. Yeah, so we got the other half of the month to complete. Many of these things from episode 1, 2, and 3 have been completed, and there's enough to start throwing in some episodes of the self-indulgence, and perhaps another tribute is due, and I have some stuff ready there, and maybe some stuff for the Thinking Inking episodes too. Anyway, I'm glad you could join in and let me bore you with this stuff, but yeah, look forward to tackling this stuff and showing you how I did it. Thanks for tuning in, and keep the enthusiasm for the art and your passions alive.